Welcome, welcome, everybody. Welcome. There we go. United Kingdom showing up. I love it. Welcome, everybody, to our WhyTry webinar today. I am very excited to be with you. I'm very excited for the discussion that we're going to have. My name is Jason Johnson, representing the WhyTry organization. We are the organization that hosts this series of webinars. I believe I need to count them up. I believe we are close to approaching webinar number 100 in this series. We're getting very close. Last time I counted was we were in the 80s, so I know we're close. Appreciate everybody being here, and as I mentioned, I'm excited for the topic. Before I introduce the topic and our panelists, just a couple of notes on the webinar and on the platform. As I mentioned, I represent the WhyTry organization. We are a resilience-focused organization. We provide a toolkit and resources to help individuals teach the skills and sources of resilience. We've been around for about 20 years, working in education and mental health, and started doing these in 2020. And these webinars have kind of taken on a life of their own. We've got a great community that shows up and regularly are able to bring in incredible panelists to have what I think are really important, really useful discussions. We are on a webinar link. We're scheduled to go for about an hour today. On the webinar link, it's set up so that only myself and my four panelists are the only ones that have live cameras and live microphones. So the rest of you that are in attendance, we can't see you and we can't hear you, but we will be able to interact a little bit through the chat. We'll keep a live chat going. One thing that's helpful is if you do comment in the chat, I do find it helpful if other people can see your comments. And so the way you can make sure that the chat is set up so other people can see your comments is if you open up the chat box right above where you type in your message, it's right above that, it says to, and then there's a little drop down arrow where you can select who you're sharing your comments with. Make sure that says everyone, to everyone. If it says to hosts and panelists, not everybody's going to be able to see that. So go ahead and make that adjustment so that you're sharing comments with everybody. And then after you've done that, let's do a quick emoji check-in. I like these. Type into the chat an emoji that expresses how your week is going so far. And these November weeks in education in particular can get a little bit dicey as we start to approach holidays. Energy starts to get a little bit unique and intense sometimes in our building. So let us know how we're going, how you're doing. And by the way, Bree, it looks like you're set up to host and panelists, just FYI. All right, I like it. We're seeing a good a good variety. We're experiencing all the emotions through emojis. Oh, Beth, that's perfect. Beth got us with the double. I love it. Well, I hope that I think my week's been going crazy as well. I can empathize with a lot of the emojis I'm seeing. Hopefully this next hour feels like a nice recharge for everybody. I know I've been looking forward to the discussion all week. So let me introduce the topic and then I'll introduce our panelists and then from there we'll just jump right into the discussion. So the topic today, the title that we have is The Power of Prevention, Building Resilience in Schools. We're going to be exploring the concept of prevention, what it looks like within our schools, what some practical approaches to it are, why it's so critical right now. And I'm so excited. I've got some real experts in the field here joining me for this discussion. I've got two organizations represented, one from the great state of Kentucky and one from the great state of California. I've got two panelists from each organization. Both organizations have represented on webinars in the past. And full disclosure, these are both organizations that I have done work with as well. But being able to work with them has given me a unique insight into what I consider their real expertise, and I really do consider them really gold standards for what practitioners should be looking at in how we administer these programs and deliver services to students. And always excited to be able to have them on. So the first organization represented is New Vista out of Lexington, Kentucky. We've got two great panelists from New Vista. We've got Kyra Collins. Kyra is a prevention specialist at the New Vista Regional Prevention Center in Kentucky, where she leads suicide and substance use prevention initiatives across 6 counties. In this role, she collaborates closely with community partners, schools, coalitions to build sustainable prevention strategies and promote mental health resilience, particularly among youth. Plays a key role in implementing the Garrett Lee Smith grant in her region, and is actively working to expand awareness and utilization of the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Thank you so much for being here, Kyra. We're very excited to have you. And then also from your organization, very excited to have Tabitha Walters. Tabitha Walters, LCSW, serves as a school liaison for 6 counties across Kentucky, potentially visited all 6 counties today, just in one day, where she provides individual therapy services in schools, helps bridge gaps in access to mental health care and supportive resources. Longstanding passion for working with children. Tabitha is especially inspired by the aha moments when students experience personal growth and recognize their own strengths, takes a person-centered, strengths-based approach, and is deeply committed to empowering students, families, and educators to build resilience, enhance well-being, and create supportive school communities. Tabitha, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. The other organization we have represented is coming from the Tulare County Office of Education, who we've had on multiple guests. Both these panelists have been on before, but this is another group just doing incredible work in California. First, we've got Renee Solis. Renee is a program facilitator with the Choices Prevention Program for Tulare County, has dedicated over 20 years to education, specializing in mental health, suicide prevention, and social emotional learning for children and adolescents. Much of his work is focused on supporting underprivileged youth, addressing the unique challenges that they face, and ensuring they have access to critical resources and emotional support. Extensive experience, including collaborating with school districts and communities to promote mental wellness, provide critical interventions, etc. Renee, thank you so much for coming back and joining us again. And then next, we've got Bree Garza. Bree is a dedicated professional with a passion for supporting youth and communities. Got a background in psychology, has been working with elementary age students since 2015. Got a diverse background in case management, data entry, mental health at a mental health clinic. Has developed a well-rounded skill set in both education and mental health support. Currently working as a prevention specialist with Tulare County Office of Education Choices Program, serves as a specialist for the Children of Promise Project, deeply committed to creating positive outcomes for young people, equipping teachers and schools with resources that they need, and is an overall rock star in the world of delivering direct services there in Tulare County as well. Welcome, Bree. So with that, outstanding powerhouse panel here. I'm Jason Johnson. My background is I'm a school psychologist. I've been the director of training for WhyTry for the last 10 years. I've been published on the topic of resilience, and my work in resilience is really how I've gotten to know these organizations. So with that, I want to jump right into it. There is a ton to dig into, and let's just get into the topic at hand and talk broadly about prevention. So prevention gets thrown around a lot. I train in all 50 states, and I hear somewhat different angles on it depending on where I'm at. I want to just hear from you, and maybe we'll pivot between organizations. Maybe we'll take that approach for now on questions. Let's hear first from New Vista, and then second from Tulare. But when you hear the word prevention, it's particularly prevention in schools. how are you viewing that? What do you consider prevention, like a prevention program within schools? Uh, New Vista, go ahead and respond, and then let's hear from Tulare.
For me, prevention in schools often looks like implementing evidence-based programs that we are able to give out for free. So we're talking programs like Sources of Strength, Too Good for Drugs, programming like that, that is one part of legislator for Kentucky, but also things that can be used as a school-based, a school-wide program, something that we can implement for all students that's age appropriate, but also, like I said, evidence based. So we know it's going to work.
Nice. Anything you want to add, Tabitha?
I was going to say, I think the other piece of prevention with us is working collaboratively with our schools, as a lot of things are constantly changing with technology, social media, access to all kinds of things. Like kids are becoming, they absorb, they have their little sponges, they know everything. So prevention is a constantly changing field, and we have to change to everything that they're getting access to. So what worked last year is might not fully work this year. So I know Kyra and myself work closely with all the schools that we partner with to do events and all kinds of stuff just to meet that need.
I love it, and that's part of why I love talking with you all because you're the people that have to be very aware of current trends that we're going to dig into momentarily. But I want to hear from Tulare. Um, what would you add to that? What's the kind of the Tulare view there when you think of or consider the term prevention, particularly in schools?
Well, I mean, I like the idea. We have to stay flexible because from year to year it does change depending on what's going on in the school cultures or that school climate. But prevention for us is building protections before problems start. And the idea of mental health awareness, making sure that there's good coping skills and there's social emotional competency. And I think a big one with prevention is, and whatever we can do with the school to provide this is a safe school approach, meaning that their school climate is one is about inclusivity, connecting with the kids, making sure that they're feeling connected to the schools. This helps with all areas, from attendance to grades to obviously student interaction. So for us, it's about helping building those protections with whatever systems we have to work with. Yeah.
Nice, Bree. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's really providing students with the tools necessary to face life challenges, right? Being able to identify what the challenges are, how do we solve them, um, building and identifying like healthy relationships as well. But it's us for being able to provide those tools to educators or us being firsthand providing it to students. And I know in our office, we do a lot of prevention in the world of like mental health, but we also do drug prevention as well. So that's another, kind of key factor that we kind of bring into it as well.
That's a great lead in to where I want to go. I want to dig right into it. I think one of the interesting things on prevention, I think for some people the word feels almost too big and abstract, and they either can't fully put their finger on what exactly fits under the umbrella of prevention, or they just want to group everything under the umbrella of prevention. So I'm wondering if you could maybe respond to this is maybe kind of like a two-parter, but tell me what are some of the real trends that you're seeing right now that you're needing to respond to as participants in the world of prevention, and then maybe also as part of that, what are some of the kind of the general consistent pieces that have remained a part of your approach to prevention. Let's go to Larry first, and then New Vista.
Um, well, for us, I mean, which is probably something that everybody's dealing with is vaping, using nicotine products. This is a huge one that we're always tackling. We're tobacco use prevention education programs, something that's always needed. We always have schools that are wanting more presentations about awareness for this. But into the mental health side, youth anxiety, depression. This school year has been a really interesting one in certain pockets of our county, more than anything, with suicidal ideation and addressing that. And so when we get data from the state and obviously data from our county, our goal is to address it in kind. So that way we're not just putting out fires, right? We want to create a system that's going to address all these things. So that way we don't have to just keep running to this fire, to this fire, to this fire. What are the programs that are going to stick for this? So but those are something we've been seeing a lot of, or at least I've been seeing a lot of in our county for this school year that we've really been addressing.
Thank you. Bree, anything you want to add to the list?
Yeah, I think some other trends that like you might take into consideration too is, the use of social media, isolation as well, and how do we, combat those things with the, all the tools that prevention can provide. And I think in our area we work in like rural areas, predominantly Hispanic population. So, there's a lot of different challenges that our students are facing that, other communities might not be. Every community has their own different challenges. But, trying to meet the needs of our specific community, I think is the most important. So
Nice. How about you, New Vista? What are some of the trends that you've been really seeing a lot of?
Well, from the prevention world over here in Kentucky, we know that tobacco and alcohol are major things because we are major producers of tobacco, but we're also major producer of bourbon. So we see a lot of tobacco and alcohol use in our youth, but something else that we're really trying to focus on right now is suicide awareness. So 988 awareness. We know that suicide rates are going up, but 988 calls are going down. So that's something that we're really trying to focus on right now. For me, just being aware of the coalitions, making sure to attend coalition meetings, ASAP meetings, ATOD meetings that occur within our community to stay connected with community partners and share what we're doing, because prevention can't exist in a silo. So like Tabitha mentioned earlier, we all have to really work together to make sure we're addressing those trends.
One trend, along with everything that everyone else has said, that hasn't quite been mentioned specifically in the schools that I've been going into and the communities that I'm working, kind of goes hand in hand with suicidal ideation, but self-harm has been on the increase significantly. And I actually haven't sent Kyra an email. However, one of several of our schools have asked for some more education on guardian knowledge and awareness and involvement. And they're asking for guidance on how to get that knowledge out there for guardians, because that knowledge wasn't out there when the guardians were in school. So they're not sure how to best support their own children through those situations as well.
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that one. My experience with responding to self-harm is that it feels like there's kind of an ebb and flow of where it comes in waves, and somehow that one seems to almost act like a contagion where it can really easily spread within a youth community in a pretty devastating way. Let's talk a little bit about I want to talk a little bit about what this looks like how prevention fits in the daily life of a school setting, how your areas are making it fit, kind of what the connection point is, what that starting point is. And then from there, I'm going to circle back around because I know we have a lot of educators on here. I know we have some specialists, but I know we also have some general educators. And a lot of the terms you mentioned are the things that get really scary in education. Like if I'm aware or I'm suspicious this thing is happening, like where do I even start? And we all have our plans within our buildings, but it's a different thing when you're confronted with it in your own classroom, in your own office, and then you have to respond. But let's start first with just like, how are your communities making prevention fit kind of naturally into the daily life or the daily routine of schools? Let's go New Vista and then Tulare.
So this is kind of a not a difficult question, but this is something that looks unique in every community and every school that I go into, because not every school schedules their day the same way. Not every school has the same number of students, so it looks very different from school to school. But I always emphasize to the schools that I work in that whichever program they are trying to implement, that they do it in a way that works best for them. Schools are busy all the time. But when asked to add another program into their curriculum, sometimes it's about when they can fit it in and when it best fits in more than like ironing out like a specific space for that. So it's all about what the school itself is able to do. And I always encourage that some prevention is better than no prevention at all.
The other thing that I always like to point out is getting the students involved, because a lot of times if you get the students involved from the beginning, they love to see it. This generation of kids love to be involved in every aspect of mental health. And you give them an idea and they will roll with it. They will take it and make it into something that you have never considered. And it will truly blossom before your eyes. And next thing you know, you have this amazing prevention program that is fully ran by students and that is successful and blooming. And that can be a great thing for your school community. It just builds morale.
I love that. Great insight. Tulare, what about you? How are you seeing people make prevention part of the kind of the daily life of a school?
Yeah, I think what was already said is very key. I mean, because we have so many districts and so many schools in the county that we provide services to, that everybody's going to look a little bit different, which is totally fine. I think it's important though, that there is some consistency to it all. If it's not in a daily life, it's in a weekly, but it's something that's consistent, that they're putting together with their normal academic life. Um, I think I think the idea of well, I guess putting SEL into the school is it's again so unique. We have schools that do pull out systems, and they're going to pull their kids out for these different types of groups, more of an intervention. And then we have some schools that are putting on tier one level, where every classroom needs to do SEL. And there's a lot of different data for a lot of different things. However, that consistency, I think, really just needs to be there. So the students understand what the vernacular is like when they're talking about emotional and social regulation, how that works for them. And then I think the other part of it is making sure that the staff at the school is very competent in what they're supposed to be doing with SEL, and if they're confident in addressing some of these issues, because some of them are very, very intimidating. So not only does the students know where to go if they're feeling a certain way, all the staff very comfortable with getting the students to the right places, or addressing it themselves. So I think that daily life and making it a little bit more common conversation is very helpful.
Anything you want to add to that, Bree?
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of build on what Renee was saying. It's definitely important for, to get teacher buy-in. And I'll kind of explain a little bit about the program I specifically run and what that looks like day to day. So my program, Children of Promise, we have a 3-year program with schools. And what we'll do is we actually use WhyTry, the SEL curriculum, and we go in. First year, I would teach the entire thing. The next year, it's a co-teaching experience. So teachers get this hands-on experience of being able to teach this SEL curriculum. And in the third year, they're independent and I provide support for them to be able to teach through. So I think that helps build a relationship, build trust, and, help teachers feel, like Renee was saying, more confident in what they're doing, which really helps drive prevention home. I know we have other programs as well, like Renee mentioned, that where we address attendance using rallies or different, ideas, since it is difficult to, be there, once a week sometimes for schools. And so, maybe that's kind of what works for us or works for that school or for that program.
Nice. How are you gathering data or approaching assessment? Because you've all indicated like part of this to be effective, and I think both of you are really good examples of this. I hope you guys get the opportunity to pause and pat yourself on the back a little bit every now and again. And um, you're both really remarkable organizations from what I've seen at being on the front lines and being very responsive. And you seem to have figured out how to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on. And I know some of that is probably like formalized assessment, and I'm guessing some of that is probably also kind of like informal gathering. What is your approach to gathering? How do you stay aware and connected to the most important front lines? Let's maybe keep the same order we just went through. Let's go New Vista and then to Larry.
For the Regional Prevention Center here in Lexington, but for the six counties that I specifically oversee as prevention specialists, I host needs assessments, and each county gets their needs assessments every 3 years. So I'm working on two. I have two in my rotation. I'm working on two right now. And what we do is we use data analysis from the state, from local sources. I work with health departments to get my data. But then I also go out in the community and I interview community partners. I interview leaders of local coalitions, so like the local agency for substance abuse policy. And then I took an assessment of the capacity, what our community can do, and identify 3 substances, whether that be mental health suicide or tobacco or alcohol. And so I identify those 3 substances and really work hard on that for the 3 years between the next assessment. And so that's how I generally determine how I go about prevention in my communities.
Nice. What about you, Tabitha?
So with my role as school liaison, I focus on the 6 counties. However, New Vista does have multiple school liaisons that we've divided up our region. And with our role, we go into the schools and we talk with the guidance counselors. Each of the school liaisons actually do hold a partial caseload, so we do have that individual clientele as well. So we see a little bit of the trends that way, but we do build that relationship with the guidance counselors. In addition to that, we also have our own needs assessment that goes out to the school officials where they're able to report back to us what kind of needs they have, what kind of trends they're seeing, and if they're needing any specific services or programming that they are needing for either this year or next school year, or if they're gearing up for anything like that. Also, as school liaisons, we're out doing events in the community with the schools. I have an event tomorrow at a mental health day. So we do a little bit of everything just to try to stay aware of what's going on in the school communities with the students. And we just try to keep informed as well as we can.
And I'm going to circle back, and I'm going to ask you a little bit more just a little bit later about that school liaison role, because I think that's such a key critical piece. Tulare, talk a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I think it's important to grab data from everywhere. I mean, from the county, from the state. We definitely are pulling data when we write these programs that we're doing and some of the grants that we have. All that stuff is at the forefront of it all, so we know what we're addressing when we come into those schools. But the cool thing about Tulare County Office of Education, well, one of the cool things is that we have about 1,600 people that we employ with a wide variety of different programs that will perform different needs assessments from in the classroom things or mental health things, and so we have a lot of different collaborations of data collection that we can choose from, which is very helpful. Not to mention, once we get into school, we start to collect any needs assessments that we need to grab a hold of, so we can bring the program correctly. But honestly, we at our level, when we go in, we usually understand what that need is on the front side of it. right? On the backside, we do our assessments of how it's working, what's doing well, what do we need to improve on. All of those things are important. But the needs assessments just really do come at us all different places because there's so much data being collected around us. It's really about collaboration. One of the things we don't want to do is reinvent the wheel, and it is astounding how many different organizations are doing a lot of this work already in gathering data. So I think one of the biggest things is to make sure that you're connecting with other agencies to make sure that you have everything that you need on your way in.
Nice. Anything you want to add, Bree?
Yeah, I think definitely using other agencies, organizations is like, super powerful when it comes to data collection. I know we partner with Health and Human Service Agency to, get more of our information. On top of that, we gain information from our students directly. So we can use that to kind of inform sometimes how our programs run, or if, for example, if we're running an SEL program, what we might need to focus on a little bit more, what we might need to pay more attention to, just so we can better meet the needs of, that class or that school. Because like we've kind of said in different ways, it kind of depends on what you're walking into, because every community is different, every school, every classroom has its own, small little communities within. So.
Nice. I want to explore two branches of this now. I want to explore first, maybe just like a quick response for what your advice would be to an educator that is being confronted with something and is nervous, unsure, or intimidated. And then from there, I want to circle back around and I want to explore some of your successes. I think people really like hearing about those. And I know to you, they may still feel like common, like some of the programs you run or some of the cool local successes you've had. Anytime I share, because I'm always bragging both your organizations up, I share some of the stuff I know you've done and people are like, I want to hear more about it. So I want to make sure we get to that. But first, let's maybe throw a little bit of a life preserver out to somebody that may feel intimidated. So I just was writing a list. I'm always writing notes as I listen, and here's the list I wrote down of the trends that you said: vaping, tobacco use, anxiety, depression, social media use, suicidal ideation, tobacco and alcohol, self-harm, and then added suicide awareness. That is a very intimidating list of things that are potentially coming into our classroom, our office, our buildings. And for a lot of educators, I don't think they know where to start. They're nervous. They're going to make a mistake, misstep, make things worse. They feel like it's beyond their training. What advice would you give as a starting point for somebody that just feels really unsure in those areas? And if you want to offer just broad advice, I'm great with that. Or if you have a specific, like, useful starting point for somebody being confronted with that, that's helpful as well. Let's go to Larry first and then New Vista.
Yeah, I think this is that can be, yeah, that's all very intimidating to look at, all of that list you had there. And sometimes I just don't look at that list every day because it can be overwhelming even for us. But honestly, when I think about teachers, we have a program which a lot of you may have heard of, the Youth Mental Health First Aid Training. It's for people that for teachers or anybody who works with youth. It's a program that we train in our districts here from the National Council for Mental Wellbeing. Nonetheless, it all starts with what teachers already have, and that's just caring for kids. I try to oversimplify for that reason specifically, because one of the things I can do is I can put people through that training and they can have all the steps, but if they're still not softening their heart to what they're actually trying to get accomplished here, I really just want them to care about kids. And if you do that first, you're usually not going to miss on what comes next, because we care enough to get to the right places, and we care enough to go the extra mile to get to the right places. So if the steps practically or any kind of training is something like, I just don't know how to do that, I think that piece really is just where it's at. I think sometimes we get in the oversaturation of the conversation of liability. So I'm like, I got to get this right. And we're not going to get it wrong if that's all we can get to, of caring about a young person and making sure we get them to the right place. That's all you really need to do. Now, if we can get training in there to make them more competent in these areas, that we can give that extra hand, it's awesome. But we have social workers and we have psychologists and specialists that are going to be out there to do a lot of that work. So it really is about that connection with the young person and the ability to let themselves care a lot and not worry so much about that liability part and just care about the student in front of you.
Nice. Bree, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think connection is such a good point to make that, you know, like building on that if confronted with the situation, building on the relationship that already exists with that student or with that youth. I think definitely approaching it from a judgment-free zone. Like automatically it's, whatever my thoughts as a teacher or educator are out the window, and I'm just focusing on what I'm hearing, what I'm listening to, and taking it as it is without adding any of my own thoughts on it. Um, I think also it's important for teachers to kind of know the resources that are available at their school. I think that's super important. There's so many that could be available, and that looks different for every school again. But I think for me, connection and the judgment free are like your top two things. That's like the top two things that people are going to notice, or that the student's going to notice first, I guess, is if they're being judged, or if they have that connection, if what they can say that person they can trust them, basically.
Nice. New Vista. What advice would you offer?
So, oh, sorry. This question actually makes me think back to when I was actually in school, and I had a professor, and one of the things that they told me is something that sticks with me. Whenever I have any kind of anxiety or fear about what I face with any kind of kiddo that I get, because a lot of the stuff that we deal with is heavy, even if you're trained in it, even if you know all the resources out there, any type of behavior is a form of communication. You just have to know how to listen. And a lot of times it's just listening with your heart, even if you don't know what they're saying. And most teachers, most educators, most everybody already knows how to do that. And sometimes that's all that the kids really need.
I love it.
And I think
Thank
that's
you.
the biggest thing.
That's great. Kyra?
I'll say broadly speaking, I really want to hype up the regional prevention centers, because everyone, no matter where you're from in the nation, you have a regional prevention center. They may be called regional prevention providers, but they will know, in terms of suicide and substance use prevention, they will know exactly what resource you need. They can provide it for you, or they know someone who can. So they are a great resource for my guidance counselors, my FRISCs, my family resource youth service centers out there. So they will always have your back.
Really, really important. I think connection and community is such a key piece to for me. I was thinking about the answer, like how I would answer my own question. And number one, I hope anybody that's listening to this don't feel like you have to handle this on your own. If you feel like you have to do it on your own, it's too heavy, it's too daunting, and none of us are, even the most trained of us, need good support. And so reach out if you're not sure what your community support is. Kyra's advice is right on. Figure out what those local community lifelines are, and then really appreciate Renee's plug for training. Seek out training. I know it's hard. We all have more stuff than we have time to do, but this one is really, really critical. The other thing I just thought of, just listening to Tabitha and Bree as well, was, and this probably goes back to grad school for me as well, but this idea that empathy doesn't necessarily mean agreement. I think sometimes part of the challenge is we may find ourselves at this moral crossroads of like, how do I address this thing that I find morally objectionable, that I don't really know how to even respond to? And I think just taking a breath and remembering that you can empathize with an individual without agreeing with them, and kind of put yourself in that space to be a guide towards support services and getting to the right support without having to like give personal commentary on it, right? And so that's how we connect with services. I want to highlight. I love it. Dan's given us such great ideas. I'm so happy to see Dan on here. I want to highlight some of the great things you've done. So let me set you up with this kind of a logical extension. What are some implementations or projects that you've been part of that you feel some pride in, that you feel like have had some success or had really good energy behind, that you would be willing to share? And I know you all are humble people, but I want you to just be willing to maybe brag a moment, because I hear these things. I've heard you talk about them. I've seen them, and I get so fired up thinking about the fact that you're doing these with kids. I'm hoping you'll be willing to share a few, because I think people are really intrigued at hearing them, just hear what other groups are able to pull off, and that inspires ideas that maybe people will be able to do locally there as well. Let's go. I lost track of my order. Let's go New Vista and then to Larry.
So I mentioned earlier, kind of at the beginning, that we have a county in particular, but a county and several surrounding counties that have seen suicide rates increase while 988 calls have been going down. So when we were notified, we hit the ground running. We went and we worked with schools to get events going so we could reach out to the kiddos and tell them all about 988 and how important of a resource that is for them. And we worked with community partners so that they also spread that information. We have seen a lot of real positive influence from that, and just connection with people in those rural cities and communities that who maybe aren't aware of the resources but are willing to learn about the resources when they're told about it. So that has been very, very encouraging for us. And then our work with the GLS grant in a particular county, which I will let Tabitha speak about.
Speak on it, Tabitha.
So, with the GLS grant, we've actually been able to do quite a bit of different things. Last year, we were able to do grief boxes, which I know we briefly discussed in another panel. So there were a couple tragedies in a county here where a couple children actually lost their lives, not due to suicide, but there was concerns that there might be suicides after. So with the GLS grant, we were actually able to get grief boxes together and donated several grief boxes to the schools that were impacted. And they went directly into the hands of children that were impacted by these deaths. And it had 988 resources in it, grief resources, depression resources, warning signs for parents, coping skills, coping gadgets, fidgets, all kinds of little goodies. And then this year we have done a couple different things, but the most exciting thing that we're gearing up for is what did we end up deciding it? Hoops for Healing?
Yes, Hoops for Healing.
Hoops for Healing, which is going to be in January, and it's a doubleheader game at the high schools. And we're going to be giving away gun locks for our county schools. We're going to be doing a wall of hope. We're going to be doing quite a bit of little activities. We're going to be giving away swag. We're going to be doing kind of like a meet the therapist, because I'm actually the therapist that's stationed at one of the high schools. So we're going to be doing all kinds of little stuff like that.
What's the wall of hope? What will that be?
So we've actually done that at a couple different events now, and I'm doing a play on it tomorrow at one of my other schools. So we come with like a poster board. Sometimes we end up having to actually take over a wall in the school depending on how much engagement we get, which the last one we had to take over a full wall. But we come with like Post-its or index cards or something like that. And the kids can take as many as they want, and they can write anything and everything that gives them hope or that they aspire to be, and they put it on the wall. And then a lot of times the school actually leaves it up, and it becomes like their wall that they get to add to, take down, remove, and yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. And I know you all are humble people, but you are like actual superheroes because I know you're the ones in there, like rolling your sleeves up, making the actual boxes. I know that was a thing you did, Tabitha, and you
Yes,
put
I did
together
the
a team.
boxes. I think we did, there was well over 50 boxes, I want to say. And then we did a couple classroom activities. So we did classroom kits. So the classrooms that actually lost the student, we ended up doing uh, classroom friendship bracelets. So the classrooms had each student got a book called The Invisible String, and then they got to make a classroom bracelet, and they each got their own special grief box.
Good for you. I love it. Great, great ideas. And I know last time you gave a good overview of what's in them, but we're going to put up contact information. If anybody has questions about any of these ideas, you'll be able to reach out. To Larry, talk a little bit about some of the projects or initiatives you've done, because you as well, I know you've done some pretty incredible things. I get
Right.
pumped up hearing about these.
Yeah, well, luckily our office has a lot of different funding sources and a lot of different opportunities with different grants and different programs. And so, I mean, we have 4 or 5 different large events a year. We do an anti-bullying symposium. We do a thing called Tobacco Bowl, where it's just kind of like a Jeopardy style game where lots of schools come and compete. It's actually kind of fun. A countywide lip sync battle, which is insane. And all these to promote the idea of getting kids involved, getting kids to schools, getting kids off drugs in their social emotional competencies as well. Bree has a great program that she does, and I know you've heard about that, Jason. We do some pretty great trips. I'll let her talk about that a little bit more here in just a second. But we just got another a different grant that we do on attendance. Jason, I know we've talked to you about this. We do resilience rallies with elementary kids. It's a very theatrical production. Bree and a few of our other specialists kind of run, and they do a fantastic job with that. This last year, a lot of we've been asked to do a lot of different presentations, a lot of different assemblies and pop-ups, and so we're all over the place. We have a lot of different ideas. I know I'm missing a ton of them because we always have something going on. But it is important to us to not just tie the academic or even just the intervention to the idea of prevention. Prevention is the idea that school and community is important. Get them involved in these creative activities where they can see all this stuff working in the midst of what they're already doing with their school in their academic day. That's really important to do as well. So yeah, there's a lot of really, really cool events. And if anybody wants some more explanation about any of those, we can do that. But yeah, I'll let Bree talk about her Children of Promise and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and might I mention the anti-bullying symposium and the tobacco bowl both take place at a movie theater. So the kids get really pumped up walking in, and it's like this huge screen that and they get the comfy seats and all that stuff. So that's the cherry on top. But with my program, Children of Promise, so I see about 250 to 300 students per semester. And for each semester, we do 2 trips. We do a local trip and then, further trip. For our local trip, this past October, we went to Adventure Park. It's kind of like they have laser tag, mini golf, arcade games, and all these different, elements. I don't know what the Kentucky version of that or like the Utah version of that is, but that's the best way I can describe it. And so we had 250 students come out to that, and it was a celebration. So they got to do all the fun stuff. Before that, they also did breakout rooms. So they were able to go into breakout rooms that had to do with mindfulness, so learning meditation, or maybe they went into the tobacco prevention rooms and they learned a little bit, age appropriate, because those 4th and 5th grade students, age appropriate version of what tobacco is and why it's bad. There's also our attendance rally put into a smaller presentation, so without the theatrics. But we were able to provide that for them. But on top of that, we also invited a lot of our local community organizations to come set up booths so that when students weren't playing a game, they could walk around and they could, gain some information, get some giveaways from all the organizations that we partner with. By visiting the booths that's what we call them, the booths, they would, get and a ticket to win some raffle prizes. So that's a great one. Our bigger trip that we do, again, those 250 students are invited. We have one coming up, but I'll explain the one that we did this past spring. We actually took 270-ish people to an Angels baseball game. So they were able to visit a professional baseball game. We provided transportation, tickets, t-shirts, snacks, food. We got to hear from a former Angels baseball player who's actually a manager as well, Bobby Valentine. And so students got to hear from him and, learn a little bit about his perspective on the idea of hard work, the having goals, creating goals, and all these different things to build on this idea of, building resilience, building relationships and connections. And yeah, we do it all. And we do it, like I said, we do that version of it again in the fall and the spring. So in 2 weeks or not this Saturday, next Saturday, I guess, we were taking 250 students again, but this time we were going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So students are getting a campus tour. They are going to go watch a football game. And again, everything we're able to provide for them as well. So yeah, we're really excited about that. That's my favorite question, by the way, Jason, just because I get to brag on my team. All the cool things you got.
It's my favorite one as well, I think.
Yeah. What's interesting about these trips, and I know that some of that can be pretty elaborate. By the way, Bree is definitely a superstar at those sites. When she comes on campus, they literally cheer and get excited about that. But one of the things that's cool is even though that those don't seem really elaborate trips or different events, the simplicity of the way kids relate to things is the biggest deal, because it doesn't have to be horribly elaborate to make a change. I was just talking about a trip took a while ago. We were at a conference and this kid just wandered off, and I was trying to herd cats. There's probably about 30 kids. It was not easy, but nonetheless, I kind of, hey, get over here, stand over here, and he's like, I was going to go ride the escalator. And I said, well, no, we're waiting here. And then the kid said, because he's from a very, very rural town, not a building over one story in that whole town. He's like, well, I've never been on an escalator, and I'm like, I started to cry and then ride it 4 or 5 times. But you get what I mean. These moments that we're creating don't have to be linked to this huge funding. It really is just about letting them experience or get to a place where they can have new experiences and know that the world is bigger than just what they see. Sometimes it really is cool to watch them. To the places you get to go is awesome. Angels, games are great, or any baseball team. Those types of things are cool, but it doesn't always have to be super elaborately made or expensive to be impactful.
I love it. Renee, I'm not going to make you answer, but I did have written down. I do want to find out at some point later what your go-to lip sync song is for the lip sync competitions. Don't answer now. I'll ask you later.
Yeah, I heard he entered the competition this year, and he's our closing act.
And then you all have hinted a little bit about the kind of the connection, and we haven't had time to dig into it. And maybe we just need to earmark a part 2, because this is I think a pretty rich conversation. But there's obviously a direct connect between prevention and intervention as well, and those are, I think, pretty inseparable. I am wondering, I have a note, and I think we have time. I've been impressed a little bit. I don't know if either of you from New Vista feel qualified to speak on it, but the dinner table project, is that a thing either one of you could speak on? I think there's a little bit of connect to the work that you're doing, but I've been impressed by that as well. Could you maybe give a little overview of that?
So the dinner table project is one of our prevention approaches. And basically what we do is we educate or encourage families to eat together. So that there's something that comes with the dinner table project is a box. And we encourage families to put their phones in the box and eat a meal together without any technology interruptions. So not having the TV on in the back, but to have a meal together as a family. And so what that does is it promotes family engagement. It promotes conversation between parents and children to children. So ultimately, Yes, Stephanie Carson. They're also available in Spanish and military versions. We also have versions for those hard of hearing. That's just my RPC. I can't speak for every RPC out there, but mine does for families that have parents or children that are hard of hearing. So we utilize that to promote protective factors for our children and then decrease risk factors, which is a big part of prevention. Tabitha, anything you want to add to that?
Thank you
No, I
for
think you covered it.
I love it. Thank you for mentioning it. I think it connects back to what Renee had mentioned earlier. Like there's different scales that can be done with these, and sometimes we get the opportunity to have a big celebratory event we work towards, like a field trip, and other times it's a simple kind of locking arms moment of getting grief box or helping parents understand how to be a little more present with their children around a dinner table. And every element of that is a kind of equally valued moving part. I'm guessing every time I'm on here, I do feel an obligation to speak because I felt like I realized I think it's because I had a few moments in my career where I felt like this. I know that there are educators out there who feel like they're on an island a little bit, and they're probably hearing you talk about describing these things, and they're going, "This sounds so awesome," and I don't have anything like that around me, and I don't know that I feel like I have the leadership or the structure around me to provide something like that. And so I'm going to go off script just a little bit and ask you if you have any tips for an educator or a mental health professional that may feel like they are on an island and are having to deal with the weight of a lot of these challenges. What advice might you offer for this one? I'm not even going to throw an order. I'm just going to say anybody that wants to unmute and share any piece of advice would be appreciated.
Mind to speak a little bit on this because it's something I wish I would have said earlier. And it's that prevention efforts, they take a long time to see the results from those efforts. So don't get discouraged if you're like, man, that stat of 30-day use of vaping has not gone down at all in a year. And that's okay. As long as you're doing some amount of effort, it may take time to see those statistics go down and see the fruit of your labor. But it's important to keep trying and keep going at it because it is effective. It does work. It just may take a little bit of time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I also think it's really important to get around people that are creative and listen and grow in that, because I'm going to be the first person to say my creativity level kind of has limits. But there are people that I know and the people that are around that just start to can dream bigger. And that's super helpful to get the passion and vision and just be around people, read books, listen to podcasts, listen to other things going on. And try to learn from it in ways you can apply, because nothing's going to be, copy and paste. It just doesn't work. We just talked a bunch about different communities, different parts of the country. It's just not always going to work the same. But the creativity to bring in those ideas is going to be the biggest piece. And then creative ideas on how to fund it. There are so many different funding sources that I just didn't think about before I get around certain people, and they just have a different level of conversation with that. So I would say get around people smarter than you and more creative than you, and know that it always will take time. I think Kara said a great thing there. It takes a minute, and it's okay if it doesn't yield results right away.
Thank you. Good insight. Did you have something, Bree?
Yeah, I think when you're able to, find somebody who has the same goal as you, I think that's the most important. As long as like the end goal, right, or the vision that you have aligns, then that partnership can really work. And I think like Renee said, like finding different resources, like it might not be another person immediately. It might be, it might be research. It might be like he said, I think he said something, mentioned something about podcasts. It might be other organizations, and maybe that partnership might look a little different. But you know, but reaching out also to just to see what's available to you, because like you said, there's things that as I've come into this office, I had no idea were available to me or to other people, and they're there and they're waiting for somebody to just ask. Yeah, I think definitely connecting with like your county, your city, different school districts as well, to see what they're doing and see how you can apply that for yourself as well.
Nice, really nice. Did you have something, Tabitha?
I was just gonna mimic basically everything that everyone's saying. I definitely agree. And sitting on meetings and coalitions and everything like that, even if you're not actively on a board, sometimes you just find random things that are like glory for your counties and the students that you work with, and they will help tremendously.
Really good, all really good advice. Let me set you up with a final question. And while you're answering the final question, I'm going to put up contact information in case anybody wants to reach out or just take a look at either of your organizations. The final question I want to ask is, I think maybe one of the connective tissue points for all three of our organizations. I think there is a direct connect um, in all that we do around the concept of relationships. Relationships are at the heart of resilience, which is kind of our bread and butter. And I think relationships are such a key piece in the world of prevention as well. Relationships in a lot of different directions. What closing piece of advice would you offer other educators on the power of relationships, the simple power of relationships towards good prevention, intervention, behavior improvement, etc.? Let's go. Oh yeah, I got to set the order. Let's go to Larry and then New Vista.
Um, I think carrying it is horribly relative to depending on what it is and who's there. But a quote that we always use in a training when I'm doing it, and you probably all heard it before, and it's just simple and it makes sense to me, is that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so if I have something to impart, it has to come first with the thought of relationship. It has to. Bree said it really well. The connection piece is key. And sometimes our attitudes, our emotions, our sarcasms, our day kind of gets in the way of that. We just, well, I'm here to educate. That's fine. But without the safety or caring, that connection's not going to take place.
Nice. Bree?
Yeah, connection, I think, is built up over small moments that all get kind of collected in like a memory bank, that students kind of look at and say, okay, this is a person I trust. And it's made up of, like I said, small, tiny moments. It's made up of smiles, knowing names, asking how somebody's doing, all these different little things. Even noticing when a student's having a bad day, like, hey, kiddo, like, what's going on today? It adds into this memory bank where trust is built. And it's one of those protective factors that we were kind of talking about, is like this like, right, trust is so helpful in these young people's lives. So just having just the one smile works.
Thank you. New Vista.
I think it's important when you are, showing up in the community and showing up with your community partners, is to just be genuine. Be genuine about what you care about. Be genuine about what you're interested in, what you can offer. Being a genuine person who really cares about what's going on in your community, I think is the best way to get partners and get things done, really.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know what I can say that hasn't already been said, because all of those things are true. Um, the connection is the biggest thing, building that genuine relationship, showing people that you care about them, that you're listening to them, that you are there for them, and that even if you don't know how to help them, that you are going to try to do everything in your power to find somebody or something that can help. I know that that goes a long way for students, for parents, for other educators.
I'm really glad you said it. You had something very important to say, Tabitha. Thank you. I'll add my contribution, just a reminder of the power of kindness. Um, as far as connections go, and relationships, be a source of really good energy. It's really easy for me to get tunnel vision and kind of like head down, go to work, and I can be in a space of a whole bunch of people and kind of lose track of what's around me. And I kind of set the professional goal early on at the schools. I wanted to be the league leader in high fives and hellos, and say more and offer more of those than anybody, and just to be that source of kindness and good energy in a building can go so far. It has a real ripple effect, and I know all of you are all doing your own version of that, and just want to thank you. Huge shout out, just a couple additional shout outs. We got some good friends from California that I know are checking in on Tulare. We got Dan and David. So happy to see you. And then huge shout out to Randa and Stephanie, part of New Vista as well. They've been on as panelists, and I know they're a big part of the team. And I love seeing their names on here. And appreciate you all showing up. Outstanding webinar today. Give our panelists a big round of applause. Really appreciate you being generous with your time and generous with your ideas. We put in contact info if anybody has questions. I know somebody had some questions about the grief boxes, and if you have questions about anything else, I say it, I mean it sincerely. These are actual superheroes. The work that they're doing is very, very important. I know you, our panelists, are having a huge impact on your communities. And thank you to our attendees. I know you're all making a big impact on your communities as well. And the fact that you show up to be part of a discussion on how we can try to improve and all better our practices speaks volumes. So give yourselves a round of applause for showing up as well. Hope you all have a great end to your year. This is the real interesting time of the school year, and wishing you the best. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Panelists, great job. That's all we've got today. Thanks, everybody, for sticking around.